Hey, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this second webinar in our State Workforce Strategy webinar series. A couple weeks ago, we heard from leaders from some four-year institutions here in the state, the work they were doing to get their students educated and get them into the workforce so that they can be part of this Texas economy. Now, today, we've got an absolutely phenomenal agenda for you. Today, we're going to be talking to leaders from our community colleges from around the state. And I think what you're going to learn from them is their commitment to their students is exactly with the same enthusiasm that we saw from our four-year schools a couple weeks ago. Community colleges have such a presence in their local community, and they're able to work with their students in ways that I think really give us some underlying strength to our state's economy. Not only can community colleges provide an opportunity for associate's degrees, even nursing degrees, and other sort of ways for students to get educated again in the workforce, also transfer degrees, transfer credits that can go to another institution to get advanced degrees, and also technical education. There's a lot of innovation that goes on at community colleges, and the nimbleness with which they can bring programs to the forefront, I think, continues to impress both state and local leaders as these institutions continue to power that workforce that employers are coming to Texas for. And so we really have packed this agenda, and so we really need to get moving on where we're going to head today and hear from these leaders here. We've seen a lot of innovation even during the pandemic from community colleges, and I want you to be prepared as the audience to hear a lot about that innovation here today. I think it's important to understand that we're all continuing to make changes to ensure that people who are seeking education so that they can find their success in the workforce, that those programs are in place and that those are proven programs. And at the end of today's webinar, I think you'll agree with me, we're going to hear a lot about some proven programs here today. So without any further ado, I think we should jump right into the agenda. Our first speaker is Dr. Joe May. He's chancellor at Dallas College. Now, Dr. May was originally scheduled to be with us live here today, but as everyone knows, the legislative session is also ongoing in the Capitol, and he was called away to testify before a legislative committee. We all understand that. That's part of his job as leader of his community college. And so I appreciate Dr. May pre-recording his comments so that we could include those in today's webinar. Dr. May brings a strong commitment to improving both the Dallas economy and the region for his area and growing jobs. Under his leadership, Dallas College is taking responsibility for many of the community's most challenging issues, including regional workforce needs, growth of minority-owned businesses, and impacts of income disparity in the community. To help meet the needs of Dallas College students, Dr. May has led the consolidation of 7 separate colleges into a single institution. It was originally known as Dallas County Community College District, and it's now known as Dallas College, which represents about 150,000 students in North Texas. A native of East Texas, Dr. May earned his doctorate in education from Texas A&M Commerce. That's where my dad went to school. He also holds a Master's of Education and Bachelor of Science degree from Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas. As a community leader and educator, Dr. May strongly believes in collaborative efforts with partners from the entire gambit of workforce development, some of which we'll be speaking with in our Innovative Training Models webinar coming up next month. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Joe May.
Good morning. It's great to be here with you today, and many thanks to Brian Daniel and the Texas Workforce Commission for putting together today's event. And it's just a great opportunity to join together to be a part of this forum. As indicated, I'm Joe May. I'm Chancellor of Dallas College. And it really is great to be a part of this conversation, given the tremendous challenges that all of us have faced here in Texas due to the unprecedented winter that we've all gone through. And I don't need to say any more about that. You all know what I mean. It's affected all of us. And I hope all of you and your families are able to stay well, safe, and healthy during this time. You know, at Dallas College, the pandemic has really had an impact, not just on the college and how we operate, but certainly has opened our eyes to the many challenges that are going on for students, for employers, for our community, and really has put us in a position to be a resource to meet those needs as best we can. And while we've known about some of those problems for some time, it's really accelerated the work that we're doing, particularly around preparing students for in-demand careers, and also paying particular attention to how we can work together with employers to strengthen the Texas workforce. And I'm really happy to share with you today some details, and I'm going to mix together some information about what's going on nationally, what's happening statewide, and of course, in the area that I pay attention to every day, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And what's happened to the numbers over the past year have really been both surprising as well as instructive as to how we go forward, and particularly as institutions of higher education that are generally quite steady and stable as we move at meeting the needs of all sectors of our economy, how that has been disruptive and in an unprecedented way, and has caused us to really look at our resources differently. And if I could see slide 2 on the presentation. So here on slide 2, these figures really tell an important story about what's going on in Texas over the past year, and it shows the catastrophic impact of the pandemic on our state and local workforce. Unemployment statewide held steady for quite some time at around 3.5%, as you see is the case for last February and January as well. But when you look at March, you can begin to see the change of direction that began to correlate with the pandemic's impact on the rest of our country and how those two work together. First, we saw the rate of unemployment rose just suddenly from 3.5 to 5.1, and then boom, 13.5% in April. Now, fortunately, we've seen it come down, but on the statewide scale, we were talking about roughly 1.3 million jobs lost in the month of April alone. Let's go ahead and look at slide 3, and just to share with you, you see just a very similar impact with the Dallas-Fort Worth and North Texas area, where again unemployment rates were steady, in our case at about 3.2%. So every area is a little bit different in the state. Then up to 4.7%, followed by a massive spike of 13.2% in April. And we see that the unemployment impact and how it correlated with education really tells an important story. When we look at educational attainment, we can see particularly that while we may have seen an average and the roughly between 13 and 14% in the month of April, but look at this. If you had a bachelor's degree, you still were impacted by the pandemic, but your unemployment rate was just under 10%. However, for those workers with less than a high school diploma, rates hit 21% unemployment. That's incredible when you have that percent of the workforce unable to find work and to get jobs. And definitely that has an impact on families, has an impact on communities, and certainly our entire country. Let's take a look at slide 5. As we look at this slide, what we see is looking at Dallas County, and again, a little different from what we saw nationally, but the trends are virtually identical with the impact of individuals without a high school diploma being dramatically more impacted than those with that were college graduates, and this I guess is not surprising when you think about what's happened with our jobs in the state of Texas, why we focused on 60 by 30 Texas, having everyone are getting at least 60 to 65% of the population with a post-secondary credential by the year 2030. But it really does show that this is more than just about jobs. It's about people and how it impacts their lives, their ability to earn a living, even during times when we see the country in great turmoil over the disruption in the workforce and jobs and uncertainty as to what's out there. So let's take a look at slide 6 if we could here. And because, as I mentioned a few moments ago, we do see that the pandemic had a dramatic impact as it relates to how it impacts individuals. And we showed in that slide, the previous slide, that it impacts people in a disproportionate way depending upon your level of education. What sometimes gets missed in this is that it impacts different segments of our population differently. And I want to here get to the it's something that's been discussed, but I don't think we've fully appreciated the impact that it's had on women in the workforce, particularly. We went back and we took a look at what happened in 08, 09, and hopefully you can see this on the slide here, where back then there was a gradual decline of jobs in 2008 and 2009, where men were a little bit more significantly impacted than women. Then we look at what we see here now with COVID-19 is something very different. We see that the plunge was much deeper for women than for men. This is really different than what we were expecting, and I think what any of us believe we would see just based on previous history and what had occurred back in 08, 09. And this is because for several reasons, but one of the main reasons is the overrepresentation of women in the hard-hit service sector. What we've seen over time is a segregation of occupations where women tend to be in more service sector jobs, meeting the need. And then when we look at this is even more true of women of color that are even more likely to be in these jobs, and they were hit even harder. So I want to jump, as we think about this. So we've had the impact of the pandemic. It's hit the undereducated, those with the lowest number of educational credentials and limited educational background, the hardest. You break that out, and then even among those educated, it's hit women as a group harder than men. And then once again, it's hit those with the fewest number of educational credentials, those without a high school diploma or those without some college, even harder than the rest of the population. And obviously, there's a number of reasons kind of related to this. We mentioned the service sector, but in many cases too, women found themselves needing, particularly single moms, needing to stay home with their children and deal with many of the issues that came as a result of the overall pandemic. Let's take a look here at slide 7, and I want to take a look at this then by race and what we see having happened here in Dallas County. And this is a similar story. We've broken this out, and I apologize for the busyness of this slide because there's really a lot going on here when we look at this by race and by gender. But it's really hard to miss on this slide that what happened back in April in Dallas County was that, yes, women were disproportionately impacted and across all racial categories. But look at what happened with Hispanic women. A 19.1% unemployment rate, as opposed to even Hispanic men, high at 16%, but lower than we've seen. Now, a little tighter for Black women in the county. Their rates were at 15.4% compared to Black men at 14.1%. But look at what happened for white women, 9.5% versus 8.6% for men. So we began to see a pattern in terms of both by gender, but also race. And while these don't always correlate with educational background, certainly there's a relationship here that we can't ignore and that we are paying attention to as we look at how we respond at Dallas College to the aftermath of the pandemic. So I want to go to slide 8 and kind of talk about some things that we were looking at as we responded to this reality, and understanding that it hit individuals in a disproportionate way. It hit some families in a disproportionate manner as well. And so the question we had to ask ourselves during this time as a college, how do we respond? I think that some folks were assuming that we, as an institution, we were going to be negatively impacted, therefore perhaps we would need help. But really, we saw ourselves during this time as a resource and made ourselves available to meet the needs of our entire community, whether it be individuals looking at how to continue to go to college despite having their life disrupted, or employers looking to stay open, to continue to find the workforce that they need in order to stay in business and to be able to manage through these challenging times, or throughout our entire community as we came together as a whole to work together to solve the problems, needing all of us to work together. And for us, we really began to look at a couple of things. First, we had many of our students. We served at the time of the pandemic. We were serving roughly 150,000 students through all of our various programs and services. This included a wide range of traditional credit programs, those planning to transfer, those in career and technical programs, hoping to go to work, as well as those involved in short-term training, leading immediately to jobs. So we, many of our students, in fact, most of our students work while they go to school. So one of the first things we did was to create a virtual student resource center, realizing that so many of our students were working in the restaurant and culinary industry. They were working hospitality. They were working in retail, and they had a lot of the skills that people were looking for in jobs. They just didn't know how to match them up during this time. So we built a virtual student resource center at Dallas College to work to assist our students in finding the jobs that were available. Because, you know, one of the things that happens during a crisis, whether it be a natural disaster such as a hurricane, a pandemic, or some other event, we see that jobs are almost immediately and instantly eliminated, and other jobs are almost immediately and instantly created. So you have a mismatch. Individuals that just lost their jobs or wanting jobs, organizations that are creating jobs are needing people for which they don't have. So we really went about immediately to look at how we bring those two together to meet both the needs of individuals and of employers. And then also we began to look at another part of our responsibility in this space is that we saw that we had hundreds of small businesses that suddenly were struggling themselves. Now, fortunately, the federal government came through and provided loans and opportunities for those small businesses, but they really didn't know how to access them. And that's where we kicked in with our small business development service, as well as our other services that we have to assist small businesses. And we helped them apply for more than 32 million worth of small business loans to help them stay whole during the pandemic. And because of that, we were really able to walk small businesses through this process to help them be successful. And as we did this, we saw that a huge percentage of those were minority-owned businesses that were struggling in many ways to meet the needs. And of those, a big percentage were those in the restaurant and hospitality business. And so here we had, at the height of the pandemic, orders to shelter in place, orders for social distancing, and which resulted in, as we all know, widespread closure of not only businesses, but specifically restaurants. And they began sinking and closing at an alarming rate. This was certainly the case across the entire state of Texas, and we saw it here in the North Texas area. And we were really proud to almost immediately, literally within days of the declaration of emergency by Governor Abbott, we got with the leadership of the Texas Restaurant Association, who have, by the way, nearly 700,000 restaurant employees that they represent across the state that had been furloughed or laid off due to COVID-19. 700,000, that represents 61% of everyone in the restaurant industry during that time. And so based on those figures, we realized that we really needed to try to help restore both the customers' faith in restaurants. We didn't know how long they would be closed during that time, but we knew that there were loyal relationships between the customers of restaurants and the restaurants themselves. And so we looked at partnering with the Texas Restaurant Association to help prepare restaurants for the time when the restrictions would be lifted in Texas. And it took longer than we thought, clearly, but at the same time, we were able to work hand in hand to meet the need. And Chairman Daniel, want to thank you and the leadership here at the Texas Workforce Commitment to our Commission, for partnering with the Texas Restaurant Association and Dallas College to help develop the Texas Restaurant Promise Training Program. You did this with a generous gift of $500,000 in grant dollars to help us make this possible. Now, this is a fully online training and certification program for the restaurant workers and owners that have been impacted by the pandemic. This effort features a 5-course series, and really it focuses on getting back to work during the pandemic. It dealt with the expectations of customers. It dealt with the realities of dealing with health issues during this time of crisis, and how restaurants could in fact operate safely and reassure their customers that in fact they were following the protocols, they were adhering to the CDC guidelines, and they could operate in a safe way while being in compliance with local requirements. And really proud to say that as of today, we have trained over 1,000 restaurant employees, and we are really proud of that relationship that we've had. And now, as we're seeing restaurants reopen, many individuals going back to work, we're really proud to have partnered with TWC, the Texas Restaurant Association, to help make that a reality. And also want to mention another partnership in which we engage with the city of Dallas, in this case, local chambers of commerce, called Dallas Forward. And this was an initiative comprised of a coalition of private and public partners dedicated to supporting small businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic, but also beyond. To date, we have supported over 200 businesses, of which the majority were minority owned. And let's go to slide 9, because I want to mention a couple of more things in which we engaged to respond to the community as Dallas College, having seen the changes that were occurring. I'm going to shift a little bit the order here from the slides. So let me jump over to the UpLearn program, which is on the far right of your screen. We also realized immediately that we needed to make available some programs and courses that were aligning with the needs of employers. So we knew that many of the employers were trying to hire workers who could work from home, work on their PC, but get engaged with what was happening with the artificial intelligence and machine learning industry in North Texas. And so we began to train in a fast-track way to allow workers to re-enter the workforce in these well-paying jobs in the IT sector, particularly working with artificial intelligence and machine learning. We also worked to help individuals that didn't have the high school diploma to get back to work, and jump to Work Ready U here, which is our free adult education program that we continue to make available. Now, we did shift from in-person to online, and we were able to continue to offer ESL, GED, but most importantly, job training programs. Now, you notice that our GED program has a different name from many in the state. We called it Work Ready U because we realized that adults coming back to get their high school diploma, that's not their end goal. Their end goal is a job. And so what we want to do is to prepare them for the skills they need to immediately enter the workplace. And that's exactly what we do here. And we have now a Work Ready mobile app, which is an interactive tool for our Work Ready U students that directly connects job seekers, in this case our students, with a career navigator. And this gets them in contact with the latest openings in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so that they can begin to immediately get the jobs that they need in order to both continue their education, but more importantly, meet their needs and the needs of their family. And we also have learned to do this on mobile devices. Previously, we would have required a person to sit down at the computer, but today, these applications operate on Apple devices, on Android devices, and are all downloadable from the App Store. Also want to mention that a big area that we've seen that has we've all have been reading about what's happened to supply chain management. And that's impacting right now everything from the ability to purchase computers to cars. You may have seen where both Toyota and Honda have stopped production of certain vehicles simply because of supply chain issues. Well, we worked immediately teaming up with the Association of Supply Chain Management to offer virtual courses again on supply chain and logistics to meet the needs of this important sector. And we're really proud of that partnership, and particularly as we see what's happening now. So that's a growth area, and we really think logistics is going to continue to grow and expand long past the time that we're out of the pandemic. And that's an area where we will be doubling down in many ways to meet both the needs of students now, but into the future. And I also want to mention our final one here on this slide, and that's our partnership with the U.S. Army and the Department of Defense. Really proud we were able to establish partnerships to help individuals transitioning out of the military, both men and women. And it's often forgotten that despite the pandemic, people were coming home, wanting to go to work, wanting to engage in careers, and not knowing where to start. So we began September 1, working with the Department of Defense and the Army to help those individuals coming into the North Texas area, to get them the skills that they needed, to connect them to the resources, to help them get great jobs in the area. So we're really proud of that partnership and that relationship. Let me jump to slide 10, if I could. And this is one I have to smile when I see enroll in a career, because that was a phrase that I uttered one day during a presentation that just seemed to have caught everyone's imagination, as it really explains what's happening to students today. And during a presentation, I just made the comment when somebody asked me a question about what is it that students are wanting today from colleges? I said, well, they're just wanting to enroll in a career. They're wanting to come to us with the expectation of getting a job. Well, immediately the chat lit up as it relates to that phrase, excuse me, and I began to hear from companies. We want to be a part of that. We want to help students enroll in a career. In fact, we want them to go to work for us. So the focus here is putting individuals back to work, and how we can get them back into the workplace with this. So we've really focused on a couple of areas, looking at dislocated workers, the unemployed and underemployed. We focused on male and minority populations. We're able, through our effort here, to provide tuition support for our students, wraparound services for our students, to really help them get back on track. And it's in a whole variety of areas around IT, Java, others. We also are working with advanced manufacturing. We're able to support this thanks to a $10 million grant and grants that we've received that are allowing us to support the students so that they don't have to worry about covering the cost of tuition. We can also provide them with additional aid. Students coming in, well, I'd love to come to school, but I can't even afford to keep my electricity on. Guess what? We have emergency resources to help with that. They may say, well, we don't have transportation. Well, the good news right now, most of what we're doing is online, but once we come back to face-to-face, we'll also provide public transportation passes to our students to meet those needs. And most importantly, we're preparing them for the new advanced jobs, whether it be in IT, automated manufacturing, or other areas, and really are grateful to our partners in this space. I want to just shout out to Verizon, Lockheed Martin, and Frito-Lay. All have been great partners and have joined with us to really help during this time of economic recovery and meet the needs. When I think back on the past year, I've been asked one question more than any other. And Chairman Daniel, I bet you've heard this same question many, many times, and that's, what jobs are going to be in demand both now and once we're through the pandemic? And I'm sure this has always been important, but I have never been asked this question by so many different people, whether it be teachers, faculty members, whether it be chambers of commerce, policymakers, members of the legislature. It seems that we all have come to a common understanding that skills matter, and that if you're going to have a great job today, you're going to have the knowledge, skills, and ability that prepares you for that job. So I'm putting up here a list. Let me tell you, it's not an exhaustive list. You may think of other areas. I'm sure that there are specifics that are not here, but I just kind of wanted to give you some general ideas of where we see jobs being added. What are the wages for those jobs that can be expected out there? And therefore, this really equates to opportunity. And the most important thing I want to say about this, though, is that all of these are requiring some education beyond high school. Now, if asked the question, well, what if I only have a high school diploma? Quite honestly, I can't be very optimistic about the future there. We see those jobs, just like we saw with the unemployment numbers, increasingly they're going to be fewer and fewer. And so today there are just so many promising fields that have a lot in common. Many of them are around software, IT. Certainly, given the world in which we entered of remote work, we're going to continue to see networking, the jobs that are going to involve remote working. Those aren't going away. So more and more around anything in the computer system analyst, around network support, network technicians. We also, allied health, healthcare jobs are going to continue to grow as we see an aging population. You know, certain ones fluctuated during the pandemic, but that was really short term. And just to kind of emphasize this as we look at these jobs, what we've done at Dallas College is look at partnerships and collaborations, because we really have not been able to go about this alone. So I'm just going to pick a couple that are on here. When it comes to software and related to all areas of IT, we really are proud of our partnerships with Amazon Web Services. We operate a number of programs with them in partnership, all preparing people for great jobs. With Google, same thing, an incredible partnership around the Google IT Professional Support Certification. We offer it both for credit and non-credit. We've embedded it in degrees. We've just rolled out our new partnership with Salesforce as well, having individuals both for credit, non-credit, have embedded that in degrees. We now offer an associate of applied science degree in cloud computing, and we're going to continue to see these areas grow. But I don't want to miss healthcare either. Recently, while meeting with the CEO of an area hospital, I asked him, I said, can you narrow it down to which areas that you have the greatest need? He said, yes, all of them. He said, from phlebotomists to nurses, we need everyone today. We have trouble finding individuals with the skills that we need. And so that really puts I think a great responsibility on us in community colleges to be able to respond to the needs of individuals, to our employers, and the community. And let me tell you, as I mentioned, we can't do it alone. We can't do it without employers. We can't do it without partnerships with K-12. And one of our greatest partners has been the Texas Workforce Commission. Brian, to you and your team, you have been amazing to work with. I can speak for Dallas College, of course, but I really speak for all community colleges here, that within literally hours of the pandemic being declared an emergency by the state of Texas, you made dollars available that community colleges could request in order to meet the needs of the communities, the employers, and certainly the employees that they were serving. We thank you for that. While the pandemic has really created, in some cases, almost unimaginable havoc on our world, on our economy, I think the bright spot has been that together we have shown that we can not only come back, we can come back even stronger. And I think that's with partnerships like we have here with Texas community colleges, but also others in higher education, K-12, and the Workforce Commission as well. Together, we can build a stronger, more prosperous Texas. And thank you for your leadership in this important area. Great to be with you today. Thank you.
Well, Dr. May, thank you so much for those informative comments. You know, you said something at the beginning of your presentation, and you said this is more than just about jobs. This is about people. And I think it's spot on. And I think it's something that we need to all remember as we work towards the future of the state of Texas, that it is about our people. It is the one reason it keeps us at the top of the economic development game. So great comment, great presentation. Thank you again for joining us today and for leading Dallas College. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce our panel discussion today. And let me start with a longtime friend and supporter of TXEDC, Dr. Steve Head. Dr. Head was appointed as the 4th Chancellor of Lone Star College in 2014 after a 30-year history of high-level positions at LSC. Lone Star College is one of the largest community colleges in the country, and each semester enrolls over 85,000 credit and no credit students. His focus is on student access, equality, success and completion, academic quality, workforce programs in alignment with community needs, and collaborative agreements with educational, business, and local civic organizations. His values include operating the college on a sound, fiscally conservative model based on data, efficiencies, accountability, and common sense. He also emphasizes transparency, ethical behavior, and a culture of high expectations and achievement. Dr. Head received his PhD in history from Texas Tech University. He earned a Master of Arts degree in history and a Bachelor of Arts degree in history from Lamar University in Beaumont, Texas. Dr. Head currently serves on the American Association of Community Colleges Board of Directors and has served on the board of 5 area chambers of commerce and 3 economic development districts or councils. He has served on a number of state and national boards and is a frequent presenter on community college issues. In 2016, he was appointed by Governor Abbott to serve on the Texas Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors, and I've had the pleasure of working with him regularly ever since. Dr. Head, thank you for being with us, and I'll be back to you in just a moment.
Sure.
Our second panelist today is Dr. Neil Matkin, who has served as the 3rd District President of Collin College since March of 2015. Previously, Dr. Matkin served as Executive Vice President of the Louisiana Community and Technical College System. Prior to his post in Louisiana, Dr. Matkin served as President of the Central Campus of San Jacinto College and served in a variety of administrative and staff roles with the Virginia Community College System, the Illinois Board of Higher Education, and Ambassador University. He holds both an Associate of Arts and a Bachelor of Arts from Ambassador College, as well as a Master of Science degree from Golden Gate University, a Master of Business Administration degree from the University of Dallas, and a Doctorate of Education from Texas A&M University Commerce. Dr. Matkin, thank you for being with us today. Finally, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Richard Rhodes. Since joining the Austin Community College District in September of 2011, Dr. Rhodes has worked to improve pathways into higher education, strengthen awareness of the community college mission, and give students the tools to accomplish their educational, professional, and personal goals. A native of Alamogordo, New Mexico, Dr. Rhodes received his Bachelor of Business Administration in Accounting and Master of Arts in Educational Management and Development from New Mexico State University. He earned his doctorate through the Community College Leadership Program at the University of Texas at Austin, receiving its Distinguished Graduate Award in 2001. Prior to joining ACC, Dr. Rhodes served as president of El Paso Community College for 10 years and as vice president of business services at Salt Lake Community College in Salt Lake City, Utah for 7 years. Dr. Rhodes is a certified public accountant in Texas and New Mexico. He and his wife, Kate, have 4 children and 9 grandchildren, which certainly, I'm sure, keeps him busy. Dr. Rhodes, thank you for joining us today. Dr. Head, let me start with you, and I'm going to ask each of you in just a few minutes, can you highlight a couple of areas in which you're working today to ensure that the workforce of tomorrow is being developed today?
Sure. Well, my comments pretty much echo what Joe May had to say. And so, I mean, I think what's really important that everybody should know is probably the work that we've done in the past with community colleges. And the relationships that we've had really pay off when you have issues like this. And the relationships I'm talking about are, I think, a partnership between community colleges, business, and the government, and especially in this case, TWC. And I echo what Joe had to say about the Texas Workforce Commission. If I were going to use a model for a state agency and the way they operate to help our citizens and work closely with those of us in the education world, that's the model. And thank you, Chairman Daniel. He also went to Texas Tech, which is really a bonus for him. So in my book, anyway. So when I take a look at things, a couple of advantages that we have, and it's really, I think, kind of echoing what Joe had to say with a little different spin on it. We talk about these partnerships between business, education, and the government, but the key for us is, especially with community colleges, is being able to work quickly and respond quickly. So in our case, in Lone Star's case, we have a corporate college. And when the pandemic hit, and again, keep in mind that all the activities that we had already done previously and in preparation for this, we were as prepared as anybody could be to kind of respond to that. So we take a look at this as credit and non-credit. And especially when you have an issue like this, when people are out of work and they need retraining, and that's where TWC came in and our responsiveness. And what I just in comments I've made to other people, this was about us being aggressive and reactive and taking quick action and not fiddling around for months while we try to make a decision. This is where leadership comes in at all levels, including the state, by the way. I think where we have requests, and I have some specific examples about this. So we've got to me, community colleges had a distinct advantage over this because we were already working on all these. When you're talking about what jobs and what occupations are coming, and I heard what Joe had to say, and I echo all of that, we were already working on a lot of that, working with our partners, trying to get students out. Some of us had created bachelor's degrees in workforce programs, and we've accelerated those, like especially in the medical field. As construction started coming back, we did that, cybersecurity. So some of the things we've been working on. And so let me just cover a couple of examples here of kind of what we've been doing. So we were working with TWC and our businesses with basically we were reaching out to them because we have advisory councils regardless, right? And we're working all the time about what do you need? Tell us what you need. We were doing that before, but so we were working with manufacturing and retraining restaurant and retail workers and oil field, you name it, we were doing it. And Harris County also talked to us about helping through the stimulus money. We identified 20 programs, and we've been working with the coordinating board. When I mentioned state agencies, I mentioned TWC, but the coordinating board for us has been really good and helpful in providing funds and support for what we were trying to do. So a couple of things, though, I think the TWC, just some of the things that we did, and I just made some quick notes here over things that we did that you may not be aware of, like for Root Systems down here, was just hair care products, went into hand sanitizers. And he shifted. But that's, I don't think what most people understand. You just can't take people that have been working on hair products and move over to hand sanitizers with different level of training. So TWC stepped up and helped us with that. And I've got about 15 of these that TWC helped us with. But some retraining in the oil business, the hospitals. We did training on contact training. One that you might find unique is, you probably haven't thought about this very much, but we helped Anheuser-Busch do some retraining for the beer industry, which actually during COVID, and you throw the ice storm in there, it makes a lot of sense why people might be doing that. And then the other one, by the way, was a company called the Texas Tissue. And you really don't think about this one very much, but they needed help. There was an extreme demand on toilet paper, right? So they wanted to ramp up their training, and TWC helped us with a grant over that. I talked to my wife last night about this. If you want to invest in something, do it in the toilet paper business. They are the providers for HEB. They are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they need more workers. This is amazing. So TWC stepped in and did that. Some other things that we worked on, just kind of, and I'm sensitive to the time here, but and Joe mentioned a lot of these, but so we're working with Amazon. Amazon's been working really hard to try to get their employees other options in their lives. We also did training for the Amazon truck drivers, by the way. You think when logistics, well, we have a logistics program and a truck driving program. And I'm not talking, we've done the big rigs, but we've also done those smaller trucks that you see delivering packages every day. And that's pretty important. We've been working with Dell. We're working with Intel. Some other just things that you don't think about too much over the long term. We're working with the ISDs over dual credit, and especially in workforce. And so in my mind, what we're talking about here is not only the immediate issue, but what are we going to do over the long term? Because we are going to get out of COVID. We're headed out of it right now. And thanks to our leadership and the vaccines and the work you're doing and bringing companies in, they need workers. We know that. So community colleges just need to be prepared for that. And we work very closely with the community. And Joe mentioned a lot of things like SBDC, and we all of us have these economic development groups that we work with. So the bottom line for me is that community colleges are adaptable. This is what they do. And most of our students are going to be academic transfer, and we know that, but a large number of them, I really think the future of our skilled workforce, what we're seeing right now, by the way, is you don't necessarily have to have a degree to be really successful and make a good living. And so I think what you're going to see is community colleges taking a greater leadership role and providing the kind of skilled workers that we all now are beginning to see what's really important. Like we mentioned logistics, but just the bread and butter workers that we're going to have who fuel our economy. They really do. And that's why the Teslas of the world and HP, that's why they want to come down here. Yeah, I know they need engineers and higher level people at times, but they also need people who can do the work. So thank you for the opportunity. And I think this is a great opportunity to let people know what community colleges do and what they're going to be doing in the future. So,
Dr. Head, thank you very much. And you used a couple of words I thought were spot on. You talked about adaptable and the ability to respond quickly. I think these are elements that are central, really, to community colleges and what you're able to do. And it's an honor for us to be able to highlight, some of that work. Dr. Matkin, let me come over to you and give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about what college is working on today.
I really appreciate it. And I want to again echo both Joe's and Steve's comments about the Texas Workforce Commission. They've been an amazing partner, and we really appreciate everything that's happened with them over the last 5 years, especially. Collin College is a little bit of different situation than some of the other colleges here in the sense that for the majority of our 36-year history, we've largely focused, and not predominantly, not completely, but predominantly on transfer. And we've been very good at that. Great university partners, great university preparation, great transferability. But in 2015, when I arrived, the board asked me to put together a master plan and look at gaps that might be in our repertoire. And the reason that was a big deal at the time was even though Collin County was one of the fastest growing counties from 2010 to 2015, the college didn't grow at the same rate. And it brought about a question of relevance. Are we doing the right things for the right reasons for the right people? And what we figured out is that we had great presence in public safety training, whether it was EMT or fire or police. We had a great medical health professions training, but in all the other technical areas, we were absent. And I mean completely and totally absent. So the board looked at that and we put together a master plan. This last fall, in the middle of COVID, we opened a $160 million facility that's our technical training center. And it's located in Allen, Texas, and it's a wonderful facility, but we introduced everything from welding to HVAC to electrical to small carpentry to you name it. And it's just been a tremendous, tremendous success, but it's more than that. Steve talked a lot about partnerships, and so did Joe. We've got a partnership with our 4 largest ISDs to offset the cost for high school students coming to take courses. And everybody that enters into a program there, the design is to have them exit with a certification, a licensure, and the high schools are helping to pay the freight. And so it's a wonderful, wonderful partnership. But more than that, we just recently inked a deal with the Texas Auto Dealers Association, and we're looking at guaranteed employment. And Steve mentioned some partners that we're also in partners. So I'll skip some of those and mention some ones that he didn't mention. We're looking at and having some great conversations across the board. I mentioned the car dealerships, but how about a deal with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, where we're piloting a collision technology program. Now, here's a major car agency, rental agency, that has a lot of issues, and they have how many jobs they need to fill in any given year. It's about 80,000 openings in the collision environment. So we're starting to look at guaranteed employment situations. We just inked a deal with a local employer who's not only hiring every one of our welding students who can pass the certifications, but then turning right around and paying for the rest of their education at Collin College. So we're trying to find those unique partnerships to build not only the immediate need, as Steve mentioned, but looking also at that future long-term pipeline. And the area that we talked about earlier in terms of healthcare, it's exploding here in Collin County. We of course launched our Bachelor of Science in Nursing. We've launched also a Bachelor of Applied Technology in Cyber Security, both of which continue to double in size over time. And so we're very, very excited about those pipelines, partnerships, and collaborations. I want to tell you, though, an area that we're not as good, and I think both San Jac as well as Lone Star and Richard, I can't speak for Austin College, I just don't know, but we're not quite to the point where San Jacinto and Lone Star are, and they're just-in-time, quick turnaround corporate college kinds of services. And we've got a model that we're following that we largely borrowed from my two colleagues that I've just mentioned. And we are working to see a better, more adaptable, fast-paced ability in those areas of just-in-time training for example, the pandemic. So there's some areas that for us to grow that we need to continue to focus on. And we're very different, for example, than the Gulf Coast region. We don't have refineries. But I want to give one other example. We've been named multiple times from multiple sources as one of the most veteran-friendly colleges in Texas. And we're the largest military or veteran enrollment outside of an area with a base. We don't have a base here. And so that kind of success, building those partnerships into industries and fields with individuals who may not even be represented in the area, we think is powerful for us. And so those pipelines, those partnerships, continuing to work with the TWC, continuing to find examples both within our own circle and outside of our environment that are doing it better than we are. We want to continue growing and serving. The other thing I wanted to mention too, though, is that we've expanded our physical footprint up here in Collin County because of the fast growth, and especially east to west. We have areas that are very difficult for a student to get from one part of the county to another part. And so we've opened up 2 campuses in the last year. We're opening up 2 new campuses, and one of them opened up just this week. Soft opening in Farmersville. The facility was finished sooner than expected. And then this fall, we'll open up a 4th new campus. So that kind of expansion, that kind of accessibility to technical programming and medical programming for our area is a huge deal for us. And we're continuing to look at partnerships and opportunities to expand those. So it's a pleasure to be with you today, and I'm looking forward to any questions or opportunities to give you additional information.
Dr. Matkin, thank you. You talked a lot about the importance of partnerships. And again, I think you nailed it. Texas really is on top because of our ability to work together and the importance of those partnerships. And I think it's what sets Texas apart, frankly, from a lot of other states. So thank you very much for highlighting that, for highlighting the important work that you're doing. Dr. Rhodes, I want to come over to you, sir. We're talking about workforce development. We're talking about highlighting some of the areas that your particular educational institution is working on today. So talk to us a little bit about what you're working on at Austin Community College and what you see moving forward.
Sure. Thank you, Robert. First of all, Joe May laid out a good foundation about the needs of our communities and how we need to address those. So Austin Community College has really had a laser focus when we talk about career development, especially in 4 critical areas right now. And that is in IT, it's in health careers, it's in skilled trades, and it's in advanced manufacturing. So let me break it out by sectors that we serve, and I'll start with K-12 partnerships. We now have 14 PTEX career academies that are really focused on those 4 different career pathway areas. We have 13 early college high schools that are specifically designed to help low-income first-generation students of color to be able to have a pathway into and through a 4-year degree. And then you take a look at one of our latest that we're going to open up actually in the fall is an advanced manufacturing academy at our Highland campus right here in Austin, Texas. Let me talk about the next area, and that is with adults, those who have been displaced from the workforce. And how are we helping them? And right now we have a focus on those same 4 career pathways. And in addition to the certifications and the associate degrees that we offer, we have what's called a fast track program. And we've identified 26 different pathways where individuals can be trained in 6 months or less and get into the workforce as quickly as possible with living wage jobs in such fields as certified nurse aide, certified production technician, dental assisting, HVAC, medical assisting, medical billing and coding, welding, phlebotomy, PC technician, and just the list goes on. But it's to give them the specific training necessary so that they can get into the workforce as quickly as possible. The pandemic has driven a lot of people, as Joe had mentioned, out of restaurants and the hospitality industry into unemployment. And we've got to get them back into the workforce as quickly as possible. And that brings me to the third component, and that is partnerships with industry. And just to name a few, we have a long-standing partnership with Samsung, and done a lot of training over the years, specifically in robotics and looking at advanced manufacturing troubleshooting. And the curriculum and the modules that have been designed with and through Samsung has helped us with another company called NXP to do the same type of training, which also includes leadership and supervision training for reskilling and upskilling of employees in those industries. Well, with the curriculum and the all of the modules that we've developed there, then all of a sudden you've heard about Tesla bringing a major gigafactory to Central Texas. Well, so we're using those modules, that training, to develop the training plan for troubleshooting in robotics with Tesla as they bring a major workforce to the Austin, Central Texas area. Then we have great relationships and working with our healthcare, with our hospitals, whether it's St. David's or Seton or Baylor Scott and White, is providing that type of reskilling, upskilling, but providing the workforce for them for the future. And then one that's most recently is we have a partnership with the Army Futures Command, and they will physically be located with a software factory at our Rio Grande campus. And that is to train soldiers in the type of software necessary, but it also builds a collaborative relationship with industry partners, many major industry partners in the IT sector in the Central Texas area. And to have that type of relationship available for not only the soldiers to be trained, but also the students in IT at Austin Community College to be working side by side in the development of the future software needs of the armed forces industry. And that brings me to the point that I want to echo what everybody else has said, and that is Texas Workforce Commission. My goodness, Chairman Daniel and Commissioners Alvarez and Demerson, what an amazing team you have, because you have provided phenomenal support in every step of the way, whether it's in the development in the workforce with Samsung or NXP or Tesla that we're undertaking now. You have been with us side by side to help make that happen. And so thank you for all your help with that. fifth area I'd like to talk about is a proposal actually that's going before the legislature right now, and it's called the True Initiative, and that's Texas Reskilling and Upskilling through Education. It's a $50 million ask, exceptional line item for community colleges in the state, and it is Senate Bill 1102, sponsored by Chairman Creighton, and House Bill 3003. By Representative Parker, specifically targeting displaced workers resulting from the pandemic to give them short-term living wage credentials and get them back into the workforce. So we need support for those bills as they go through. And lastly, I'll just say that, this is a time that as a result of the partnerships and some of the things that are happening through fundraising, through our foundation, through the stimulus plans that have come out, whether it's the CARES Act, CARISA funding, or the most recent stimulus funding, that community colleges in the state of Texas have the ability to help students get the amount of emergency aid they need to help support them beyond tuition and fees, to get them in school, to keep them in school until they can achieve their dreams and get that done. So for students out there, future students, come to us. Community colleges are the pathway to your future. They are the pathway to middle skill jobs and beyond. So thank you. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Dr. Rhodes. And again, you heard it, partnership. We heard it over and over and over. And I do want to highlight one thing before I turn it over to Chairman Daniel for our next keynote. Dr. Rhodes, you spoke very eloquently about the importance of partnering with some of these businesses in the Central Texas region. Samsung, great example. Tesla, great example. I tell people all the time in economic development, when a project is announced, it is not the end, it is the beginning. It is the beginning of a long-term relationship of success in the state of Texas. And I think, again, those examples that you gave are shining examples of how that success can grow. You look at some of those companies that have grown their footprint in the Central Texas region, and that's happened because of you and a lot of others. So Dr. Head, Dr. Matkin, Dr. Rhodes, thank you each for what you're doing. It's reassuring to know that you're on the front lines in Texas, and we're so glad that you are. It is now time for our next keynote speech, and to introduce, let me turn it over to Chairman Brian Daniel. Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you so much, Robert. Thank you to all the panelists, Neil, Steve, Richard. What a great panel, and certainly to Dr. May. A lot of kind words were said here about the team at TWC, and so let me just, on behalf of all TWC staff and employees, thank you so much for your kind words. We do our best to make sure that folks have access to our programs, and it's very gratifying to me that we're succeeding in helping community colleges really achieve their mission out there. Some great speakers that we've heard from. We've only gotten a nugget from each one, it feels like. I think there's so much more we could talk about, but all we were ever able to do with these webinars is to get the conversation started. And boy, I think we've done that today in a strong way. I know that we'll continue this conversation over time. I know that folks may have questions. We're going to go right up to the wire today with this webinar. And so maybe there'll be an opportunity to forward questions to some of the speakers and get some answers. We want to really make sure that your questions get answered, and we'll continue to do that even after this webinar ends here at 11:30. But it's not over yet. We've got one more really phenomenal speaker for you today to add to the four that we've heard from. This is an opportunity for us to hear about how these things get put into action, just like the other speakers, but another take from another leader with community colleges here in the state. I want to introduce you to Dr. Brenda Hellier. She's Chancellor of San Jacinto College. This is Texas's 8th largest community college. They have about 45,000 credit and non-credit students on 4 campuses and some extension centers as well. They just opened their 5th campus recently in August of last year. Prior to joining the college, Dr. Hellier worked in the corporate world. She was an accountant. She worked both in private and public arenas and has a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting from Fort Hays State University in Hays, Kansas, as well as a master's degree in business administration and a doctorate in community college leadership from the University of Texas at Austin. Dr. Hellier is involved with various commissions, committees, and boards at both, at all levels, national, state, and local. And currently she serves as board chair of the Texas Association of Community Colleges. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Brenda Hellier.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'm delighted to be here today and really honored. And I do want to thank my colleagues for all of their remarks, and they know I've been taking notes and figuring out how we might collaborate together on some of this work. So I am going to give you a little bit of a different perspective. I want to approach this for making sure you understand that there are 50 community colleges across the state of Texas. And I'm going to give you examples of how we work together. And then also, but a lot of my examples are going to be focused around San Jacinto College and then being able to tie that back to some of the other colleges. So this is a map of the Gulf Coast region. And unlike Dallas County, we have 9 community colleges that represent this Gulf Coast region. And you can look at the purple there, that's San Jacinto College. We may not be the biggest, but I do say that we make a pretty significant impact. And one of the things as you look at this region, it becomes how do all of these community colleges partner together and collaborate? And I'm not going to tell you we don't compete, but we also know from a workforce standpoint, we've got to collaborate and we've got to best serve our region. And so as you look at your area for the EDC leadership that's here, figure out who do you need to have at the table from these community colleges. I do want to just highlight, as the chairman mentioned, we have 5 campuses. Opening a new campus during a pandemic is a little difficult, but we have a really cool Edge Center, and I'm going to talk to you about that also. 30% of our enrollment at San Jac is workforce training, and about 70% is that transfer program. And we're celebrating 60 years. And when you talk to my colleagues, you're going to hear all the community colleges have a long history in their community. And that's what really makes us very unique, is that relationship we have in our communities. So the industries that serve the Houston region are highlighted on this slide. And San Jacinto College is in the hub of all of those. And we have programs designed around that. And a lot of those are technician programs, technicians for the petrochemical area, nurses, technicians in the healthcare area. But even from a standpoint of providing that transfer pipeline for those students that are going to graduate with bachelor's degrees eventually and work in these areas. And so again, taking that regional approach as San Jacinto College and all the community colleges work to train the workforce. So at San Jac, we put together a workforce philosophy. We've got it on a 1-page handout. And we did this a couple of years ago, and it was really based on input that we were getting from industry. And then we engaged our faculty around that workforce philosophy. And so between faculty and our industry, they all agree. These are the critical areas we need to focus on. First of all, the graduates in our programs largely stay in our community. They're going to work in our community. Our employers are going to hire those graduates. And so how do we make sure that those graduates have the skill sets that are needed? Our programs are employer-led. And I can tell you, when you look at some of the latest programs that we designed, employers are at the table going through every component of it. The piece around the hidden curriculum and the industry culture has been pretty significant around how we have helped our students understand that culture in a petrochemical industry, the culture in a hospital, that safety culture that you need to build into your curriculum, and just even the teamwork and the communication. And so we've built that into our curriculum based on industry helping to guide that. We listen and we implement. Steve mentioned his advisory councils. We have, all of the community colleges have advisory committees, which are largely from an industry perspective, working with our faculty. But our councils are reporting directly and working directly with me. They are CEO to plant manager, and really creating those conversations of how are our students doing? How are our graduates doing when they get out to you? And so based on that feedback, we listen, we implement the changes, we evaluate, and then we figure out how we're going to improve. And so this philosophy is what guides our work here. I put some recognitions up here, and San Jacinto College has been really blessed in being able to receive quite a few recognitions over the last few years. But when I look at these recognitions, they're not about San Jacinto College. They're about our industry partners and receiving them with us, and as we designed these programs together. And that's what you'll really hear is, it's not us alone, it's us together with industry. I want to give you 4 examples of recent program development. So as you are out in the community figuring out, you got a lead on a new client that wants to come into the area, what can you do? And these are programs. Maritime was a new program for us. I mean, we're in the Port of Houston. There had not been real training around workforce that was being done. And so the port came to us along with one of our EDC partners and said, there's a gap here. What are we going to do about the retiring workforce, and what kind of program can be put together? We started out and bought curriculum, U.S. Coast Guard curriculum we bought from an academy on the East Coast. And then we rented a facility on a highway, on industrial highway, and started doing U.S. Coast Guard approved training for incumbent workers. Since then, we have a maritime campus, we have an associate degree program, and we're training about 1,000 incumbent workers a year on U.S. Coast Guard approvals. What made this program really unique? You heard a lot of compliments about TWC. TWC got a skills development funding to help start the program. We had earmarks from the federal government to help us, and then just substantial partnerships with industry and even the Port of Houston. If I look at process technology, that's a program we've been in for 50 years. And on the left-hand side, you see our new Center for Petrochemical Energy and Technology, and it's actually the Lyondell-Basell Center. And this is a facility where industry came in and partnered again with us to redesign all the curriculum. This facility was designed by industry for industry. And when you talk to our industry partners, they're going to tell you that. They wanted it to be the day in the life of an operator. There's an 8,000 square foot plant, chemical operations plant behind the facility. And we're running 30-hour shifts there as students are completing, so that those students can have the real hands-on experience of what it's like to be out in a plant, having to climb 2 stories at night when it's dark, having to work in the teamwork from a control room and running the outdoor plant. And so in that particular situation, industry came to the table, redesigned curriculum, redesigned the entire facility, and that helped support us. And again, we had bond dollars approved by our taxpayers to build this facility. But our industry partners, and there's 130 chemical plants along the ship channel, they endorsed our bond because they knew this was a top priority. Commercial aerospace, and so we're in the Edge Center I mentioned to you, which is in Ellington Field, is the Houston Spaceport. It's one of the top 10, it's 10 commercial spaceports in the country. They have come in, and I'll have to be honest, we lost a pretty big deal in our region because we didn't have adequate workforce training in this area. And BAHAP, which is Bay Area Houston Economic Partnership, was at the table with us along with Houston Airport System. And the one thing we all learned from this deal that we lost was we needed to get the workforce training component right there at Ellington Field. And so Houston Airport System has given us a facility, and we're doing training right now for commercial aerospace. Again, a program that was designed by industry, going around the country with us, looking at what needed to be done. There are DOL grants, Department of Labor grants, there's TWC grants that are helping to support us, and funding from the Houston Airport System to make sure we get this kicked off, ready for that next big deal. And there's been quite a few large contracts signed down there. And then you heard Steve and I think Richard and Neil, all 3 of them talk about bachelor degrees. So community colleges, we know our whole key is around workforce and be it serving our community, but the Bachelor of Science in Nursing was an area where all of us heard tremendous need from our workforce areas and our hospitals about upskilling associate degree RNs to a bachelor's degree. And so we've kicked off also our Bachelor of Science in Nursing program. And again, when I look at these, and we used these 4 examples last week with a new employer that's looking out in our region to do a pretty major investment in our region. We showed them these programs. And what they came to the table, they said, what we're hearing is private-public partnerships, being creative, being nimble, being flexible and adaptable. And they felt pretty good that we were going to be able to respond to their unique situation also. This is a slide to try to help summarize some of the work that community colleges do. You heard about non-credit programs. We're all doing those. That's a way for us to really move quickly. It's also a way for us to do some programs that can also meet an important workforce need. We have our credit workforce programs. I've given you some examples there. We do certificates. Those certificates can stack on top of each other. And then we do associate degree programs. Some areas, a certificate's going to be exactly what the employer needs. Other areas, like petrochem, they've told us, we want the associate degree. And then we do transfer programs. As I mentioned earlier, Sanjac has about 70% of our students that are transferring to our university partners. And so that's important work for us. It's important for the workforce. Our bachelor programs and contract training. And again, the contract training is really tied to the work that's being done at TWC with Chairman Daniel and our commissioners. It's important work, and as we're working through how to do that training, getting those grants, getting that support is really important to us. Last, just a few weeks ago when we were presenting to this employer looking at our region, we talked about the partnerships. Again, it's not just going to be San Jacinto College delivering. We may be a lead on those workforce programs, but what this employer wanted to move their company across the country is they wanted to know about STEM. Everybody's wanting to know about that. They want to know about our K through 12 partners, the university programs. We highlighted the university programs in the STEM areas that they were interested in. We also highlighted the 8 other community colleges in our area because to meet a workforce need for a region the size of Houston or any other metropolitan area, you're going to need other resources. And in this particular area, the AAS that this employer is looking at, we don't offer, but it's in the Texas curriculum. We can respond quickly. And we told them we could have this off the ground in 6 to 12 months to meet their needs. And again, knowing that TWC is an important partner with this skills development funds, it was really an important conversation last week. And for the EDC partners that are on this webinar, if you don't have a community college representative on your board, and I would say the community college CEO, you need to add them. They're an important partner for you being able to recruit and retain businesses to your area. They're also an important partner for bringing the collaboration between K through 12 and the university partners. And so there's 50 community colleges across the state. I hope you're working with at least one or multiple of them on how best to be that partner for your region. We left this employer that's looking at our region with a couple of big takeaways. We have space, we have interest, and we love to partner. And those are the same 3 comments I want to leave with you. As EDC leaders, your community college, again, is there to support and to serve your community. They know the community, they know the local employers. Create a relationship with them. Reach out, have honest conversations. If there is a gap in what you're seeing in workforce training, let them know. But have that partnership available in advance. Start building that. So when you do have those deals that are coming, that you're ready to respond. All of my colleagues talked about collaboration, partnerships, adaptability, being able to make decisions and move them quickly, And that's what community colleges are about. And we've got the partnerships, again, with TWC where we can make that happen. And we've got the colleges across the state. And so if there aren't resources with just one college, we'll be able to partner and find a way to win that deal. And so again, I thank you for your time. And just know that your community colleges are a tremendous resource in your community. Thank you.
Dr. Hellier, thank you very much for your informative remarks. I think it's important, again, a couple of key takeaways that I jotted down here. You said at one point, it's not us alone, it's us with industry. Spot on. I think you're absolutely right. You talk about, again, teamwork, communication. One of the things that stood out to me in your comments, you noted, a lost project, and you could have not taken any action. You could have said, "Oh, shucks, we didn't win it." But instead, you took action and you partnered with the Houston Airport System to get training in a specific area up and off the ground. I think it's important, although we win a lot of our projects here in the state of Texas, we don't win them all. And it's important, I think, for us to always look behind us. If for some reason we aren't able to win a large project, it's important for us to look back and figure out, well, why? Where did we not stack up? Where did somebody else outperform us? And then take action. And I think your example is perfectly spot on there as well. And you talked about, finally, the amount of community colleges that we have in the state of Texas. And I know before we began the webinar today, we were all chatting in preparation. And it's very clear that all of our leaders get along extremely well. They are all on the same page. And it's important for me to highlight this because you don't always get to see that. And it's important as we work on deals. Dr. Hellier talked about having a CEO from a community college on your board. It's important to make sure that we are intertwined in that way, because projects, when they come in, they expect that kind of coordination. They demand that kind of coordination. And again, I think it's an example of what we do very, very well. As Chairman Daniel said, we bumped right up against our time today because we had such an impressive lineup. I don't know about you, I was blown away. I knew about the great work that all of these leaders are doing, and even hearing it today leaves me invigorated, excited about the future in the state of Texas, our ability to come out of the pandemic stronger than when we entered, which is hard to do, by the way. We entered on top. I fully expect we'll come out on top because of the work that so many of our leaders today and others are doing in the education workforce space. Again, as we heard earlier, it's not just about the jobs, it's about the people. And we have to remember that moving forward, because it is the people of the state of Texas, our workforce, that keeps us number one. On behalf of Chairman Daniel, I want to say thank you again to all of our participants today for taking time out of your busy schedules, not just for providing your perspective today, but every day, each and every day, for making sure that you are delivering top talent. Economic development in Texas is absolutely a team sport. And it takes all of us playing our respective positions to ensure that we remain on top. I do want to note that we will be sending out a link to today's recording to all of you who have joined, for those that want to rewatch, and I certainly will be as well. I also want to encourage you to join us on Wednesday, April 7th, for the next conversation in our ongoing statewide workforce strategy series. We will be focusing on our technical education partnerships, meeting on Wednesday, April 7th. And to register, please visit businessintexas.com. Again, businessintexas.com. Click on the How We Market Texas button, and you will find a link there to sign up. Again, on behalf of Chairman Daniel, Texas Workforce Commission, Robert Allen at the Texas Economic Development Corporation, and all of our outstanding educational leaders that joined us today, thank you for what you're doing. We look forward to seeing you on April 7th, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.